The National Electrical Code, or NEC, does not explicitly prohibit the installation of an electrical panel above sump pumps with covers. However, several code requirements must be considered. Article 110.26c requires that electrical equipment be installed in a manner that will not expose the equipment to physical damage or harmful environmental conditions. Article 408.1 requires that sump pumps be installed in a manner that prevents water from contacting the motor or other electrical component. Based on these code requirements, it is generally considered acceptable to install an electrical panel above sump pumps if the following conditions are met. Firstly, the sump pumps are covered to prevent water from splashing onto the panel. Secondly, the panel is installed at a sufficient height above the sump pumps to prevent damage from potential leaks or flooding. And thirdly, the panel is accessible for servicing and maintenance. In some cases, the local electrical inspector or the applicable building code may have specific requirements that prohibit the installation of a panel above sump pumps. For example, some building codes may prohibit the installation of electrical panels in hazardous locations, which includes areas where water is present. If you are planning to install a panel above sump pumps, it is advisable to firstly consult with a qualified electrician to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and standards. Secondly, consider the potential for leaks or flooding and take appropriate precautions to protect the panel. And thirdly, ensure that the panel is accessible for future servicing or replacement. Let's delve deeper into each of these points. Considering Article 110.26e, the phrase physical damage can refer to impacts, abrasions, or other forms of mechanical stress that could compromise the integrity of the electrical equipment. Harmful environmental conditions could include excessive moisture, dust, corrosive substances, or extreme temperatures. Installing an electrical panel directly above uncovered sump pumps could potentially expose the panel to moisture and humidity, which could lead to corrosion and eventual failure of the electrical components. Splashing water could also introduce contaminants that could damage the panel's internal circuitry. Therefore, the use of covers on the sump pumps is a critical mitigation strategy. Now, let's examine Article 408.1a. This section emphasizes the importance of protecting the sump pump's electrical components from water damage. This protection typically involves using a sealed motor and pump assembly, as well as ensuring proper drainage to prevent water from accumulating around the electrical connections. However, even with these precautions, there is always a risk of leaks or spills. Installing the electrical panel at a sufficient height above the sump pumps helps to minimize the risk of water damage in the event of a leak or flood. The specific height requirement is not explicitly defined in the NEC, but it should be high enough to provide a reasonable margin of safety. A height of at least 12 inches, or 30.48 centimeters, above the highest potential water level is generally considered acceptable. Accessibility is also a key consideration. The NEC requires that electrical equipment be readily accessible for servicing and maintenance. This means that the panel should be located in a place where it can be easily reached by qualified personnel without having to move or disassemble other equipment. The area around the panel should also be clear of obstructions to allow for safe and efficient work. In the context of installing a panel above sump pumps, it is important to ensure that the panel is not blocked by the pumps themselves or by any other equipment that may be stored in the area. Additionally, the panel should be located in a well-lit area to facilitate visual inspection and troubleshooting. Local electrical inspectors and building codes may have specific requirements that further restrict the installation of electrical panels in certain locations. For example, some jurisdictions may prohibit the installation of panels in hazardous locations, such as areas where flammable liquids or gases are present. Other jurisdictions may have specific requirements for the type of enclosure that must be used in damp or wet locations. It is essential to consult with the local electrical inspector and review the applicable building codes before installing an electrical panel above sump pumps to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations. Engaging a qualified electrician is highly recommended. A qualified electrician will have the knowledge and experience to properly assess the installation site, identify any potential hazards, and ensure that the panel is installed in accordance with all applicable codes and standards. The electrician can also advise on the appropriate type of panel and enclosure to use, as well as the proper wiring methods. Furthermore, the electrician can perform a thorough inspection of the installation to verify that it meets all safety requirements. When considering the potential for leaks or flooding, it is important to take appropriate precautions to protect the panel from water damage. This may involve installing a waterproof enclosure around the panel, using sealant to prevent water from entering the panel through conduit openings, or installing a drainage system to divert water away from the panel. Additionally, it is advisable to regularly inspect the sump pumps and the surrounding area for any signs of leaks or water damage. If any problems are detected, they should be promptly addressed to prevent further damage. Ensuring accessibility for future servicing or replacement is crucial for the long-term reliability of the electrical system. The panel should be located in a place where it can be easily accessed by qualified personnel without having to move or disassemble other equipment. The area around the panel should also be clear of obstructions to allow for safe and efficient work. Additionally, the panel should be located in a well-lit area to facilitate visual inspection and troubleshooting. If the panel is located in a confined space, it may be necessary to install a dedicated access panel to provide adequate clearance for servicing and maintenance. It is also important to consider the potential for future expansion or modification of the electrical system. The panel should be sized to accommodate any anticipated future loads, and there should be sufficient space around the panel to allow for the installation of additional circuit breakers or other components. By carefully considering these factors, you can ensure that the electrical panel is installed safely, compliantly, and in a manner that facilitates future servicing and maintenance. Remember that the National Electrical Code serves as a baseline for safe electrical installations, and local jurisdictions may have additional requirements that must be met. Always consult with a qualified electrician and the local electrical inspector to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and standards. Now let's discuss specific aspects of electrical panels and sump pumps in more detail. An electrical panel, also known as a breaker box or load center, is a metal enclosure that houses circuit breakers or fuses. These devices protect electrical circuits from overcurrents, which can cause fires or damage equipment. The panel receives electrical power from the utility company and distributes it to various circuits throughout the building. Each circuit is protected by a circuit breaker or fuse that is sized to match the ampacity of the wiring. When an overcurrent occurs, the circuit breaker trips or the fuse blows, interrupting the flow of electricity and preventing damage. Electrical panels come in various sizes, ranging from small panels with a few circuits to large panels with hundreds of circuits. The size of the panel depends on the electrical load of the building and the number of circuits required. Panels are typically rated for either 120/240 volts or 277/480 volts. The voltage rating indicates the maximum voltage that the panel can safely handle. Sump pumps are used to remove water that has accumulated in a sump basin, typically located in the basement of a building. The sump basin collects water from various sources, such as groundwater, rainwater, or melting snow. When the water level in the basin reaches a certain point, the sump pump automatically turns on and pumps the water out of the basin and away from the building. Sump pumps are typically powered by electricity, and they are available in various sizes and configurations. The size of the sump pump depends on the amount of water that needs to be removed and the height to which the water needs to be pumped. Sump pumps are commonly used in areas with high water tables or in buildings that are prone to flooding. They are an essential component of a comprehensive water management system, and they can help to prevent costly water damage. When installing an electrical panel above sump pumps, it is important to consider the potential for water damage to the panel. Water can damage the panel's internal components, leading to corrosion, short circuits, and eventual failure. To prevent water damage, the panel should be installed in a location that is protected from moisture and flooding. The panel should also be equipped with a waterproof enclosure to prevent water from entering the panel through conduit openings or other access points. In addition to protecting the panel from water damage, it is also important to ensure that the panel is accessible for servicing and maintenance. The panel should be located in a place where it can be easily reached by qualified personnel without having to move or disassemble other equipment. The area around the panel should also be clear of obstructions to allow for safe and efficient work. Additionally, the panel should be located in a well-lit area to facilitate visual inspection and troubleshooting. The NEC provides specific requirements for the installation of electrical panels in damp or wet locations. These requirements are designed to protect the panel from water damage and to ensure the safety of personnel who may be working on the panel. According to the NEC, electrical panels that are installed in damp or wet locations must be equipped with a weatherproof enclosure that is listed for use in those locations. The enclosure must be constructed of materials that are resistant to corrosion and water damage, and it must be designed to prevent water from entering the panel through conduit openings or other access points. In addition to the enclosure requirements, the NEC also requires that electrical panels that are installed in damp or wet locations be located at least 12 inches or 30.48 centimeters above the floor. This requirement is intended to protect the panel from flooding and to prevent water from wicking up into the panel through the conduit. The NEC also provides specific requirements for the wiring methods that must be used in damp or wet locations. All wiring must be installed in conduit or other approved raceways, and the conduit must be sealed to prevent water from entering the panel. The wiring must also be rated for use in wet locations, and it must be properly supported to prevent it from sagging or coming into contact with water. Compliance with these NEC requirements is essential to ensure the safety and reliability of electrical panels that are installed in damp or wet locations. Failure to comply with these requirements can result in water damage, electrical hazards, and code violations. When installing an electrical panel above sump pumps, it is also important to consider the potential for physical damage to the panel. The panel could be damaged by impacts from tools, equipment, or other objects. To protect the panel from physical damage, it should be installed in a location that is not subject to heavy traffic or other potential hazards. The panel should also be equipped with a protective cover to prevent damage from impact. In addition to protecting the panel from physical damage, it is also important to ensure that the panel is properly grounded. Grounding helps to protect personnel from electrical shock in the event of a fault. The NEC provides specific requirements for grounding electrical panels, and these requirements must be followed to ensure the safety of the installation. According to the NEC, electrical panels must be grounded to a grounding electrode system that is installed in accordance with the code. The grounding electrode system must consist of one or more grounding electrodes, such as a ground rod, a ground plate, or a metal water pipe. The grounding electrode system must be connected to the panel with a grounding electrode conductor that is sized in accordance with the code. In addition to grounding the panel, it is also important to ground all of the equipment that is connected to the panel. This includes the sump pumps, the wiring, and any other electrical equipment that is located in the area. Grounding the equipment helps to prevent electrical shock and to protect the equipment from damage in the event of a fault. Compliance with these NEC requirements is essential to ensure the safety and reliability of electrical panels that are installed above sump pumps. Failure to comply with these requirements can result in electrical hazards, equipment damage, and code violations. Finally, when installing an electrical panel above sump pumps, it is important to consider the potential for future maintenance and repairs. The panel should be located in a place where it can be easily accessed for servicing and maintenance. The area around the panel should also be clear of obstructions to allow for safe and efficient work. Additionally, the panel should be located in a well-lit area to facilitate visual inspection and troubleshooting. It is also important to keep a record of all of the electrical work that is performed on the panel. This record should include the date of the work, the name of the person who performed the work, and the description of the work that was performed. This record can be helpful for troubleshooting future problems and for ensuring that the panel is properly maintained. In summary, installing an electrical panel above sump pumps is a complex task that requires careful planning and execution. It is important to consider all of the applicable codes and standards, as well as the potential for water damage, physical damage, and future maintenance and repairs. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that the panel is installed safely, reliably, and in compliance with all applicable regulations. Always consult with a qualified electrician and the local electrical inspector to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and standards.